Hello, and welcome back to the Ohio State Animal Sciences Podcast. I'm Alec Rush. This episode is actually the second installment of a two-part series, so if you haven't listened to the previous episode, Nutrition Part 1, it might be worth doing that first. Today we'll be continuing our exploration of nutrition. We've already established its importance within animal science and livestock farming, as well as covered the classes of nutrients needed by animals. We talked about the National Research Council and how it determines the nutrition guidelines for animals. We also mentioned that the Ohio State University is pretty good at this nutrition stuff. We'll be taking a closer look at some elements of nutrition. Now that we know the basic concepts, we can dig a little deeper. First, we'll talk about sustainability. There's a conception that livestock farming isn't sustainable, and this really isn't true. We'll explore one reason why. Next, we'll talk about ruminants. What are they? And why are they so important to the process of nutrition? And how does this connect to sustainability? So let's jump in. Hopefully I can express these concepts in a way that's easily digestible. Pardon the pun. Food production isn't a perfect system. There are some byproducts that can't be used and, unfortunately, go to a landfill. But, relatively recently, we have found ways to make the process more efficient. By finding other uses for certain byproducts, the whole system becomes more sustainable. For example, when citrus fruits are processed for juice and other products, the pulp is left over as a byproduct, and we used to throw it away. But now, we feed that citrus pulp to animals. This reduces waste and makes the whole process more efficient. In addition to citrus pulp, there are a lot of other byproducts that can also be fed to livestock. Almost every food industry produces some kind of unneeded material. Processes like the milling of grain, the processing of oil seeds, the fermentation of things like corn, these all yield some kind of byproduct. Animals can also be fed things like expired food products. Ultimately, it is in nutrition that we have found a use for all of these byproducts that would otherwise be wasted. The fact that we can feed them to animals is a big win for sustainability. Before we move on, here's one more really interesting example of this concept. The process of making printed circuit boards for computers produces a lot of excess copper. This used to go to waste, but now we actually feed it to pigs, cattle, and chickens because it's a nutrient they need. Again, the fact that we have found another use for these byproducts means that livestock farming is a lot more sustainable than some people think. One of the main reasons this whole operation works is because of ruminants. A ruminant is a type of animal that digests things differently than other animals. Cows are a major example of ruminants. Because of the way they process nutrients, which I'll explain in more detail soon, they can eat a lot of things that non-ruminants, such as pigs, cannot. This means we can feed them some of the byproducts that would otherwise go to waste. So what makes cows, sheep, and other ruminants so special? Why can they get nutrients from things we can't? Well, it all has to do with microbes. Humans and other animals have a gut microbiome, but with ruminants, it's on a whole other level. In order to digest food, ruminants actually ferment it in their stomachs, which have 4 chambers. This fermentation occurs in the first 2 chambers, enhanced by a process involving regurgitating and chewing again, or ruminating, the plant matter that they eat in the form of cud. The word ruminate actually comes from the Latin ruminare, meaning to chew over again. Fun fact, ruminate can also mean to think about something. But back to the microbes. Once their food has been chewed and re-chewed, it ferments in the complex stomach of the ruminant. This is where the bacteria comes into play. As I said, the microbiome of ruminants is on another level. It's like its own world. There are tons of different types of microbes in a ruminant's digestive system, from bacteria to protozoa to yeast to fungi. All these microbes are what ferment and ultimately break down and digest the plant matter that the ruminant ate. The bacteria and other microbes live off what the animal eats, but they also supply some of the nutrients the animal needs, like their major source of protein. So basically, because of the insane digestive process that ruminants undergo, they can eat certain byproducts that would otherwise get thrown away. And because of that, farming as a whole is more efficient and sustainable. Pretty interesting how something as small as bacteria can have such a big impact on a large-scale system. I wonder what other small processes can impact big processes. Something to ruminate on. And that just about does it. Thanks for sticking around to hear even more about nutrition, one of the bigger topics in animal science, especially as far as Ohio State is concerned. From the basic types of nutrients all the way to the intricacies of how microbes in ruminants make farming more sustainable, I hope you learned something new. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, I'm Alec Rush, and this has been the Ohio State Animal Sciences Podcast.